First at 9 this Tuesday, the 16th of December 2025. Questionable equality. Opposition accuses government MPs of receiving preferential treatment before the law, citing police inaction over MP Ashoka Ranvala's accident. Governing party to take a decision on Ranvala's parliamentary seat, says the cabinet spokesperson. Court digitisation. Cabinet approves the e-court project to digitise the judicial system with a planned investment of 150 million rupees. Lethal side effects. Authorities investigate the deaths of 2 patients who received an anti-vomiting vaccine. Use of the vaccine suspended pending a formal inquiry. Momentum swing. November purchasing managers' indices show a slowdown in both the manufacturing and services sectors.
Kalin baby soap rupial 90කට. Kalin baby podi හැමෝටමයි.
From Derana, this is Derana First at 9. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
Good evening, you're joining First at 9 on Sri Lanka's most trusted news source, Derana News Channel. I'm Tarindu Mahendra, joining you live with the latest in Sri Lanka and around the world. We begin with your top story this evening. The Department of Meteorology forecasts that the rainy conditions prevailing in the northern and eastern parts of the island to continue over the next few days. Heavy rainfall exceeding 100 millimeters is likely in the northern, north-central, eastern, Uva and central provinces, as well as in the Badulla and Polonnaruwa districts.
The Department of Meteorology forecasts the rain conditions prevailing in the northern and eastern provinces to intensify over the next few days due to an easterly wave. Heavy rains have been affecting the northern province since yesterday afternoon. Fishermen report that sea conditions along the coastal areas of Mullaitivu, Mana and Jaffna districts have turned rough. Meanwhile, today, soil and rocks once again collapsed onto the Vavasi area along the Badulla-Passara road. The Department of Meteorology forecasts that the current rainy conditions will continue over the next few days. Accordingly, heavy rainfall exceeding 100 millimeters is likely in the northern, north-central, eastern, Uva and central provinces, as well as in the Badulla and Polonnaruwa districts. Views were expressed at the District Agriculture Committee meeting today regarding flood-damaged cultivated lands in Polonnaruwa district and compensation payments. We too were once farmers before becoming ministers. We are speaking on your behalf regarding these issues. Even though the floods have not yet fully receded, we have allocated 241 million rupees for compensation. The funds have been sent to the district and will be distributed by tomorrow. We have remained steadfast in this commitment. Meanwhile, the scenic Riverstone area, a popular tourist destination in the Matale district, was severely affected by the disaster. With the intervention of several government institutions, essential services including roads, electricity and water supply are being restored. The Matale district secretary inspected the ongoing restoration work. 30 people are missing following a landslide at Sarasavigama in Peradeniya. The remains of 23 victims have been recovered, but search operations for the remaining 7 were called off. On November 27th, in the early hours of the morning, a mound of rocks and earth collapsed onto a house in the Battawatha area of Madulsima, killing 6 members of the same family who were asleep at the time. 5 of the deceased were women, including a pregnant woman. However, 3 other occupants of the house survived the incident. The upcountry railway line was also severely affected, with several sections washed away due to the disaster. Engineers from the Railway Maintenance Division stated that it is currently impossible to refill the landslide site below the Great Western Range or to relocate the railway line. Under these circumstances, restoring the railway line between Kotagala and Nanuoya is expected to take a considerable amount of time.
The second phase of the third school term commenced today, with schools across 6 provinces reopening for academic activities. 640 schools within the Uva, Central and North-Western provinces, however, remained closed.
The second phase of the third school term commenced today. Accordingly, academic activities commenced in schools across the western, southern, northern, north-central, eastern and Sabaragamu provinces. 640 schools within the Uva, central and northwestern provinces, however, remain closed. In the meantime, children in Nelummala Hasalaka, where recent landslides claimed 31 lives, commenced academic activities at Pamunupura College today. Lessons began after religious observances. In the meantime, the Sri Lanka Transport Board announced a decision to provide free transport services for disaster-affected school children during the month of December.
දවටනේ නියම මිල සඳහන් ස්විස්ටෙක් නිෂ්පාදන මිලදී ගන්න. ස්විස්ටෙක් ගන්න ඕන හොඳම තීරණය.
Cabinet spokesperson Minister Dr. Nalinda Jyotis asserts that MP Ashoka Ranvala remains in hospital under the care of specialist doctors and has not received medical clearance to be discharged. He made this statement while responding to journalists' questions at the Cabinet briefing today.
මේ හිටපු කතානායකවරයා සම්බන්ධයෙන් යම්කිසි තීරණයක් ගත්තද ඔහු තවදුරටත් මන්ත්‍රීවරයෙක් විදියට තියාගන්නවද එහෙම නැත්නම් රජයේ මතය මොකක්ද ඔහුගේ හැසිරීම සම්බන්ධයෙන්
As a party, we will have to decide on that matter. This is a judicial issue. We will present the facts to the court on the 19th. Accordingly, it will be possible to determine where a mistake was made. At present, an investigation is underway under the orders of the IGP to ascertain whether police officers neglected their duties.
ඔබතුමන්ලගේ ආණ්ඩුවට සහ අශෝක රණවල මහත්මයාගේ මේ ප්‍රශ්නෙට පාර කැපීම සපුගස්කන්දේ රථවාහන අංශයේ ස්ථානාධිපතිවරයා. ඔහුට තිබ්බ මේ රථවාහන අනතුර සිද්ධුණු ගමන් කෙලින්ම පොලිසිය ඇතුලේ තියෙනවානේ බීමත් ක්‍රියාදුරෙක් සම්බන්ධයෙන් සිදු කරන පරීක්ෂණ. ඒ මූලික පරීක්ෂණය සිදු කරන්නේ නැතුව අඩු ගානේ මේ මිනිස්සයා කොහෙට ගෙනියන්නද කියලාවත් එයා දන්නේ නැහැ. එතකොට මේ පොලිසිය කරන මේ වැඩේ සහ ඔය අශෝක රණවල වගේ മന്ത്രിවරු කරන මේ වැඩ හින්දා ඔය විශ්වාසය දැන් පළුදු වෙලා තියෙන්නේ කියලා ඔබතුමාට පිළිගන්න වෙනවා නේද?
We should not prejudge whether Ranvala committed a crime. Let the matter remain open. When he is admitted to the Kiribati and Colombo hospitals, doctors make notes on the patient's condition. Those notes can be examined and presented to the court. The forensic medical officers will also examine him. Urine and blood samples have been sent and the results will be presented in court on the 19th. The outcome will be determined from all these findings.
පොලිසිය බාර ඇමතුමා කියනවා මේ පරීක්ෂණ කටයුතු කරන්න ඕන කරන බ්‍රීතලයිසර්ස් මේ වෙනකොට පොලිසිය නැහැ කියලා. මේ කාරණේ සම්බන්ධව ඔබතුමා දැනුවත්ද?
Yes, I am aware of this shortcoming. However, this deficiency has been addressed. The necessary equipment has now been procured and will be provided to the police immediately.
එතකොට මෙතුමා කොළඹ ජාතික රෝහලට අරගෙන ඉන්න ප්‍රධානතම හේතුව හැටියට ගොඩක් දෙනෙක් චෝදනා කරනවා එතුමාගේ පුතා ඉන්නේ කොළඹ ජාතික රෝහලේ කියලා. එතකොට ඒකට සාධාරණ සාක්ෂියක් සපයනවනේ මේ ප්‍රාගම යන්නොත් කොළඹ ආපේකට. ඒ ගැන මොකද්ද ඔබතුමාට කියන්න තියෙන්නේ?
A hospital does not decide whether or not to transfer a patient based on the proximity of their relatives. He is still being examined for the injuries sustained in the accident and remains in the hospital on the advice of a consultant. He has not yet received medical approval to leave. During a briefing, the cabinet spokesperson claimed that certain parties are attempting to equate the recent cyclone with the Easter Sunday attack. We respect media entities as they work with the trust of the public. If false news is reported, correct it and move forward. In this issue, it is clear that some want to put this incident on par with the Easter Sunday attack. That is why they keep repeating claims that warnings were issued 25 times and that India also issued alerts. We have responded with facts. If there are further disputes, they can be taken to court where all these facts will be proven. Our focus is on developing the meteorological department. We plan to install a Doppler radar by mid-2027 and another radar will be acquired with assistance from the Japanese government. We are also working to strengthen evacuation procedures for natural disasters.
The government has decided to allocate 150 million rupees for the e-court project to digitize the judicial system. Meanwhile, cabinet approval was also granted to process the paddy stocks purchased by the Paddy Marketing Board and release the rice stocks to market through the Lakshatosa and Cooperative Network.
The Cabinet of Ministers granted approval for Sri Lanka to co-host the 2026 Asian Regional Debt Management Conference at the end of May next year. The conference, hosted annually by the Asian Development Bank, provides an opportunity for debt managers from the bank's member countries to share experiences in the field of public debt management, discuss challenges and strengthen regional cooperation. Cabinet approval was also granted to implement the Lower Malwatu Oya Multipurpose Development Project, which was halted following the COVID-19 pandemic and economic crisis. The newly resumed project, which is aimed at overcoming the scarcity of water in the lower Malwatu Valley and estimated at a cost of 47.18 billion rupees, is expected to extend until the end of year 2030. The Cabinet also greenlit the decision to process paddy stocks purchased by the Paddy Marketing Board and released rice to the market through the Lakshatosa and Cooperative Network. The paddy purchased by the board during during the last Yala season using the 6 billion rupees allocated for the year 2025 is currently stored in its warehouses. Meanwhile, cabinet approval was granted to provide 150 million rupees to the Judicial Service Commission from the provisions allocated under the Clean Sri Lanka initiative to implement the e-court project. Under the e-court project, the website and ECMS system developed for the Supreme Court is expected to be adopted by all courts across the island. The government also plans to establish a national judicial data network to help overcome the long-term issues of case delays, lack of data transparency, and procedural inefficiencies that hinder timely access to justice. Cabinet approval was granted for the Labour Ministry to join the Global Coalition for Social Justice as a partner organisation on behalf of the government. The ministry will function as the coordination centre for the coalition in Sri Lanka. Cabinet approval was granted to sign a Memorandum of Understanding between the Sri Lanka Foreign Employment Agency Private Limited, an affiliated institute of the Sri Lanka Bureau of Foreign Employment, and the Enterprise United Cooperative in Japan. This partnership aims to increase job opportunities in Japan through a secure, systematic and formal procedure, providing internationally recognized technological and professional training to Sri Lankan youth. Approval was also granted to sign a Memorandum of Understanding between the Sri Lanka Postal Department and the Saudi Post Corporation to issue 2 commemorative stamps. The stamps will be issued to mark 50 years of the establishment of diplomatic relations between the two nations by the year 2024. The Cabinet of Ministers also granted approval for a number of Sri Lankan universities to enter into memoranda of understanding with foreign counterparts.
The opposition claims that law enforcement authorities investigating the recent accident involving former Speaker of Parliament Ashoka Ranwala demonstrates that the law is not applied equally to all citizens under the NPP regime. With that, here's a look at perspectives shared within the political sphere on the incident.
The current government assumed office with the promise of upholding the law. However, the government failed to enforce the law impartially in the matter of the fraudulent lease of a building belonging to the National Workers' Institute, in which Minister Wasantha Samarasinha, Deputy Minister Mahinda Jayasinghe and Kaduwala Mayor Ranjan Jayalal were implicated. Similarly, in the recent accident involving NPP MP Ashoka Ranwala, actions were reportedly taken to transfer hospitals to avoid subjecting the MP to a breathalyzer test, which would determine whether alcohol consumption was a factor in the incident. Even the police did not make any attempt to conduct the test at the time. These incidents demonstrate once again that a different standard of law appears to apply to NPP members and supporters compared to the general public. The government came to power promising reform. Where then is the change they pledged? The police would likely have responded differently if an ordinary citizen were involved in this situation, ensuring the law was enforced immediately. Even in the case of P.L. Manamperi, multiple statements were issued following the discovery of his previous affiliations with the SLPP. Yet in the current situation, no such measures are being implemented. NPP MP Ashoka Ranwala, who was recently involved in an accident, was reportedly treated very differently from how an ordinary citizen would have been in a similar situation. If this had involved an ordinary citizen, the police would not have delayed administering a breathalyzer test until the following day.
The National Medicines Regulatory Authority has taken measures to immediately withdraw 4 stocks of a vaccine named Ondansetron administered for nausea. The move came after 2 deaths were reported from the National Institute for Infectious Diseases following the administration of the drug. A study conducted by the Microbiology Department of the Kandy National Hospital confirmed the presence of a suspected pathogen in 1 tested sample.
Ondansetron, a medication commonly administered to control nausea and vomiting, is widely used in hospitals across the country. However, on December 12th, the National Medicines Regulatory Authority instructed a private importer to immediately recall 4 batches of Ondansetron from all hospitals nationwide. The suspension followed reports of complications post-administration. A study conducted by the Microbiology Department of the Kandy National Hospital found a suspected pathogen in 1 tested sample. The drug was subjected to a special testing after several patients at Kandy National Hospital developed fever shortly after administration. The NMRA stated that preliminary reports of similar complications had also been received from multiple other hospitals. National newspapers reported yesterday that 2 patients at the National Institute of Infectious Diseases in Colombo had died after receiving the injection. Authorities say further investigations are ongoing.
Just like what happened during the tenure of Kehelia Rambukkala, once again patients are reportedly experiencing allergic reaction due to the medicine imported from India. This is a very disappointing situation, especially because these medicines were imported into the country through direct orders placed by the State Pharmaceuticals Corporation.
When contacted, National Medicines Regulatory Authority Chairman Dr. Ananda Wijevikrama said approximately 270,000 doses of the ondansetron injection had been imported and steps were taken to remove them from hospitals beginning last Friday. He confirmed, however, that around 220,000 doses had already been administered before the withdrawal was completed. The NMRA has launched an investigation into the reported deaths of 2 patients at the National Institute of Infectious Diseases where the injection had been administered. Parallel investigations are also being carried out by the Medical Research Institute alongside the NMRA's ongoing probe. Additionally, the NMRA has instructed the local distributor to obtain a comprehensive explanation from an Indian manufacturer, Mon Pharmaceuticals Private Limited, within 28 days. Dr. Wijevikrama further stated that a preliminary report on the issues linked to the drug was submitted to the Minister of Health earlier this afternoon. The Health Minister and Cabinet spokesperson Dr. Nalinda Jayatissa was questioned on the situation during today's Cabinet briefing.
There are 11 registered suppliers of this drug to Sri Lanka. 4 of them supply products manufactured in Bangladesh, while the other 7 supply products from India. All of these suppliers provide the drug with USP certification not under the Indian Pharmacopoeia. The complications arose from an order placed in 2021 that was supplied in 2025 and from stocks received in 2024 and 2025 involving 4 samples. Tests have been conducted at NMRA labs and further examinations are underway regarding the 2 reported deaths, one involving a 37-year-old woman and the other a 23-year-old woman. The respective company is registered with the NMRA while the procurement process was completed in compliance with proper procedure.
ඉන්දියාවෙන් මෙහාට ගෙන්නුවට ඖෂධය ඉන්දියාවේ නිෂ්පාදනය කළ කොච්චර කල් වෙනද යනාදී ප්‍රශ්න ඇති වෙනවනේ. එතකොට නිෂ්පාදිත ඒ ක්‍රමවේදය සම්බන්ධයෙන් ගැටලුවක් ඇති වෙන්නේ නැද්ද මේ වගේ සිද්ධීන් වලට? අපේ රටට
85% of all imported drugs are shipped in from India. Samples of each stock cannot be checked owing to the limited lab facilities at the NMRA. The current protocol at the NMRA is to conduct tests if any complications arise while a drug is in use.
Former Minister C.B. Ratnayaka, who had been remanded after being arrested by the Bribery Commission, was granted bail today on 2 sureties of 2 million rupees each and an overseas travel ban. On the 2nd of December, Ratnayaka was arrested by the Bribery Commission on corruption charges under the Money Laundering Act. The case is linked to an investigation conducted by the Commission's Assets Investigation Division under Section 23A1 of the Bribery Act concerning the alleged illegal acquisition of assets exceeding 57.3 million rupees.
30% discount on Apico Foam and Spring mattresses available at Apico Supercenter and Apico Daily.
Moose Phoenix Nattal Fiesta November 13 සිට 16 දක්වා අනුරාධපුර ස්පොට්නික් ක්‍රීඩා පිටියේදී.
Welcome back to First at 9. Opposition leader Sajith Premadasa calls for a separate cabinet ministry to administer the disaster management system in a bid to minimize damages caused by future disaster situations. He made these remarks during a tour of inspection in the disaster-hit Ibbangamu area.
Opposition leader Sajith Premadasa engaged in a tour of inspection in the disaster-struck Ibbangamu area in the Kurunegala district. It is imperative that the country's disaster management system be developed before another tragedy strikes. To introduce a new mechanism, it is crucial that modern equipment be provided for disaster management purposes. At the moment, disaster management services only ensures the coordination of state institutions. This state of affairs cannot proceed further. It is imperative that disaster management be administered under separate cabinet ministry. Although we are unable to future prevent disasters, we can implement measures to minimize the damages caused by disasters by strengthening the disaster management system.
Ambassador of Kazakhstan to Sri Lanka, Sergei Viktorov, paid a courtesy call on Prime Minister Dr. Harini Amarasuri at Temple Trees yesterday, during which Sri Lanka's ongoing rebuilding and rehabilitation efforts post-Cyclone Ditwa were discussed. Discussions further covered the strengthening of bilateral cooperation between Sri Lanka and Kazakhstan, the potential for collaboration in the fields of education, particularly through student exchange programs and joint research initiatives, was also noted as an area of mutual interest. Meanwhile, the newly appointed Canadian High Commissioner to Sri Lanka, Isabel Catherine Martin, also called on Prime Minister Dr. Harini Amrasuriya at Temple Trees yesterday. The High Commissioner conveyed Canada's condolences over the devastation caused by Cyclone Ditwa and reaffirmed Canada's readiness to extend further support to Sri Lanka during the recovery process. High Commissioner Martin reaffirmed Canada's focus on supporting the agricultural sector, recognizing its importance to livelihoods and economic stability. The Derana Relief Initiative, launched to stand in solidarity with people affected by the adverse weather, continues to receive generous support from across the island. Since the onset of the disaster, Derana has been delivering essential relief items to affected communities. In a further step to support recovery, a special program has now been initiated to provide school children with books, school bags and other school supplies to help them continue their studies without disruption. Donors from all parts of the country are visiting the TV Derana head office day and night to hand over their contributions. Upholding the trust placed by these donors, Derana continues the systematic distribution of relief materials to children and families impacted by the disaster. Welcome back to First at 9. Sri Lanka has secured a $200 million loan from the Asian Development Bank to continue Stage 2 of the Mahaveli Water Security Investment Program. The funding will support efforts to strengthen food and water security and enhance climate resilience in the North Central province. The project includes the completion of major irrigation infrastructure, including nearly 7 kilometers of main tunnel excavation, along with the construction of open and covered canals, conduits and small tunnel sections spanning about 68 kilometers. An 8-kilometer extension of the Al Potana irrigation canal will also be developed. Stage 2 further focuses on commercial agricultural development with the establishment of 13 pressure distribution networks to ensure reliable irrigation for high-value and field crops. Furthermore, climate-resilient value chains will be established while providing improved access to finance and extension services to farmers. Meanwhile, Sri Lanka's Purchasing Managers Index for November 2025 indicated slower expansion in both the manufacturing and services sectors. According to the central bank's report, the manufacturing PMI stood at 55.5 in November, down from 61.0 in October. The expansion was broad-based, with all sub-indices contributing positively, particularly in the food and beverages, textiles and apparel manufacturing sectors. Expectations for manufacturing performance over the next 3 months remain positive, largely due to anticipated seasonal demand. Meanwhile, the services PMI declined to 50.5% in November from 66.0 in the previous month, indicating a slow expansion in services activities, mainly due to the impact of adverse weather. Despite this, financial services continue to strengthen amid increased lending. Expectations for business activities of the next quarter continue to improve, although the pace for growth has moderated due to concerns over weather-related disruptions to consumer demand. Meanwhile, the Colombo Bourse regained positive momentum today as a result of price gains in counters such as Colombo Dockyard, Commercial Bank and Sampath Bank. The benchmark ASPI gained 0.17% to close at 22,333.25, while the more liquid S&P Sri Lanka 20 increased by 0.31% to end the day at 6,071.12. Market turnover was 2.86 billion rupees. Foreign participation in market activity remained at subdued levels, with foreigners closing as net sellers, offloading shares worth 42 million rupees. That's all for tonight from First at 9. Thank you for joining. Have a great night.